Okay, here we are coming up to Shabbos on the 5th of Cheshvan. Yeah. Hayom Yom, short and really sweet. The Jewish people are compared to the stars twinkling in the high heavens. By their light, even he who walks in the darkness of night shall not blunder. Right? You know, the stars, for those who know how to utilize them, are guiding points for people at sea. They navigate by the stars. So basically what he's saying here is the Jewish people are shining illuminations by which humanity can navigate. If you will just listen to the Torah that is coming through us and that we've been given the gift to be able to give to the world, we can help the world navigate. So every Jew, man or woman, possesses enough moral and spiritual strength, that's each and every one of us, but Vadai certainly, have enough moral and spiritual strength to influence friends and acquaintances and bring them into the light. Bring them into navigating this world the way God intended. Here we go. So let's learn a little bit about navigating this world. The world which has a lot of nighttime in it, right? That makes it difficult to navigate. Lessons in Tanya. Continuing Epistle 26 on page 127 in Lessons in Tanya. Yeah. And in Likutei Moharan, in the middle, no, more than the middle down, in Kof Mem Gimel, the line begins for Oid Yesh Lahafli. The Alter Rebbe begins, there's something else that's wondrous about the statement in the Zohar. Now, we need to review this. There's a statement in the Zohar, which is the problem statement for this whole long letter. The Zohar itself says, and I'm going to quote a little here from the Zohar. The Zohar itself says, "Ubegin da atzidin Yisrael litman me'elona dechai." And since I won't read the Aramaic, I'll just translate. And since in the future, which is the time of now, Yemois HaMashiach, that in the time of the future, in this future, the Jewish people will taste from the tree of life, right? The tree of life is that state where only life is shining and not the opposite of life. And since we will eat from the tree of life, which the Zohar itself calls this book is the tree of life, is the Eitz Chaim, and all the teachings that evolve from the Kabbalah, we will taste of that. Since that will be the case, that we will taste from the tree of life, we will be redeemed from the Gullus with God's mercy, and there will be fulfilled that which says in Pasuk, that Hashem alone will guide us. We will rest. We will be present in godliness only. And there won't be with us any foreign God, any foreignness. We won't have any idols, even the subtle idol worshippers that are explained in Hasidus, that you don't have to bow down to an idol to be captive to an idolatrous state where your being is captive by the mentality, the gestalt of the culture that you're in, and that's got you locked into a mode of operation and a mode of thought, which is not the thought of Torah. So he says there won't be with us any foreign God, and there won't be any force of the tree of good and evil. That's what it says. Okay, now the Alter Rebbe goes on now to ask lots of questions on this Zohar. Now, the ones that we've dealt with so far, and we'll continue to deal with so far, we see that even in the days of Rab Shimon Bar Yochai wrote the Zohar, the Talmidei Chachamim, the wise ones of the generation, including Rab Shimon, they did not occupy themselves, and they were people who came into the category of Torasai Umanasai, people whose Torah was their profession. They did not occupy themselves only in the study of Kabbalah. They continued to occupy themselves in the study of Isser veHeter, permissible, impermissible, and permissible, Tahara, and the opposite of Tahara, and the tree of good and evil, in other words, the halachas of what is good and what is evil, continued to be studied. And they didn't abandon that for the sake of learning only Kabbalah. And we see also, going from then to now, the study of Isser veHeter, the study of what's good and what's not good, continues to be predominant in most yeshiva. Well, it's predominant even in Lubavitch yeshiva, by the way. There's a good amount of time spent in Gemara and halacha, in the study of good and evil. So what do you mean that in the time from the Zohar on, the tree of good and evil, we won't be involved in it, and it will be only the tree of life? So we can't take that at face value. So that's the problem statement of this letter. Okay, and the Alter Rebbe goes on today and Shabbos to say the following. He's going to get us deeper into the problem and how to understand before he gets to the solution. And in addition, there's to be wondrous about, apella upella, wondrously wondrous about, efshar, how is it possible that Shleimesa Mashiach, in the time of Messiah, if you're going to say that the tree of good and evil doesn't still have some place in the times of Mashiach, how is it possible that in the days of Mashiach, you think we won't need to know the laws of what's permissible or what's not permissible and what's permissible? You think we won't need to have that knowledge? The knowledge of what's impermissible and permissible, and tuma and tara, and what's impure and what's pure? How will we sacrifice the korbanos? Hashem, immediately in our days, the Beis HaMikdash HaShlishi will descend, and we'll be offering korbanos. And korbanos have very, very, very strict laws. And if you don't do it, you're on the side of, you've brought it into tuma or isser. It's isser, it would be forbidden for the priest to offer it up. So we see that even in the days, not only of Mashiach, but the days of when the third temple descends, we will have to know how to shech korbanos. V'gam chulin, and also weekday meat. If we don't know the laws of how to press the knife, even kosher slaughter, there still will be the need for kosher slaughter, and the halachas of how to actually press the knife and how to direct the knife. And there will be still the notion that if you didn't do it right, the shchita would be puzzle, poislim hashchita, upagimis hasachin, and you're going to have to know still how to smooth the knife so that it has absolutely no blemishes. In other words, all the laws of Isser and Heter are obviously going to prevail even after Mashiach comes. And when a ish b'tivoy sheichet, and he says, will there be a person who's born naturally that he'll know how to shech, and he'll know how to press the knife and how to sharpen the knife? And will the knife tia brias? Will the knife just by itself automatically be really, the meaning is healthy? Will it be pure? It doesn't make any sense that in the times of Mashiach, since we're going to have to slaughter, we're going to be born with that knowledge. and we won't need to ever sharpen the knife because the knife will always be exact the way it's supposed to be. And it'll stand without any blemish. It's not. What if it gets nicked? Right. So he's saying to us, we can't take that Zohar literally. That the only thing we're going to learn and immerse ourselves in is the tree of life. We're still going to be immersing ourselves in the tree of good and evil. What makes something mutter or not? Now, this should raise a question mark in our mind. Okay, so what's the difference? I thought all the berurim were over, right? The berurim, the rectifications were over by the time of Mashiach. So there must be something else going on. Because yes, the berurim are over, the rectifications are over, but still there is the notion, there's the reality of what's good and what's not good, what's permissible and what's not permissible, what's clean and what's unclean. So we're holding here with a question, which is not going to be answered today or on Shabbos for a while. The harbor halachas, and he goes on further, and he says there are many, many other halachas. Dam, fats and blood, which are not, you can't eat them. The shar isurin and other things which are isur. V'gam tumas hames. And also there will be the notion of that we have today still tumas hames. There'll be a tuma, an impurity affected with a death, and we need to know those halachas. So we're going to have to know all of that. Because as is written, Hanab and Me'ashana Yomais, that a child of 100 years will die. In other words, the lifespan will be lengthened in the time of Geula, but there will be death. We're not yet at the point of Geula. We're not yet at the point where Yavola Ruach HaTuma Mina Oretz, where all the Tuma has been swallowed up from the earth and death has been swallowed up. In the time of Mashiach, there will be life and there will be death and there will be burial and there will need to know all of that. V'gam tumas yoldus, and there'll be the tuma associated with giving birth. Sodik that we're going to have to know that as well. But Kasiv, as is written, yoldus yakto, is written in the future, a certain miraculous event that in the future a woman will conceive and give birth together. And there's a long explanation in lessons in Tanya about how to understand that. One of them, which I'll just bring forth, is that from one conception, many children will be born, but not in a manner of triplets or quadruplets, but each day a new one will be born. Okay, there will be miraculous events, but there still will be the notion, the laws of ritual of purification from giving birth and purification from death, etc. That in the future it can be that a woman, and will be something miraculous, that a woman will give birth to many children from one relationship. Nevertheless, the laws of Tuma, of forbiddenness and Tuma won't change. And the Alter says, and it's not, I'm not going to, I've said enough on this, right? No need to go on and on to talk about something which everybody knows. Hafchu b'chol hashas, which if you turn over the whole shas, you'll see all of this. U'medrashim, the Torah Hilkasim and Mashiach, where they ask, is there a different law at the time of Mashiach? Will the law change at the time of Mashiach? And the law won't change. Eliyahu bo livshed kol hasveikus. It will be clarified. Eliyahu will come and he'll clarify all the doubts. All the halachas will be illuminated to us, but the halachas will still apply. He'll come to livshed kol hasveikus. Parsha zu osid Eliyahu, and as it says that this particular parsha, this particular topic, in the future, Eliyahu will come with Dorashoy to interpret it for us. Another thing, the Alter Rebbe says, which is not understood. Again, honking back, if you came in late, all on the topic of we seem to be misconstruing what the Zohar says, and what the Zohar says as that in the future everything will take its life from the tree of life and not from the tree of good and evil. But how to understand that? And it can't mean to say that the whole Torah of good and evil, which we won't be, I won't repeat it either. All the laws that we know won't be abolished. Will be abolished. You can't say that. A root thing that we said earlier, you can't say that because the entire Torah is called Torah Hashem. The oral Torah, the written Torah, the Pshat, the Remez, the Drush, and the Sod, all of that is Torah Hashem. It's all from God, including the laws of Isser Heter, etc., etc. So that can't disappear. It would be a mistake to say that's going to disappear. So we have to understand how not to misconstrue what the Zohar said, that in the future only the tree of life and not the tree of good and evil will be front and center. So wait, and moving. Also, and I said this is a long piece. We're not going to get to resolve this today or in our Shabbos reading. But moving. And another thing that's not understood. It says the Zohar is another piece from the Zohar. That in the future, the Talmid Chachamim won't need to come on to the people of the field in order to get their sustenance. And neither from the mixed multitude, the Ochlin Pasul, Talmid Ve'oser, which is what the Zohar says. The Talmid Chachamim won't need to come on to them. Because we've already had this experience where the Talmidi Chachamim didn't need to come on to the Amei Oretz or the mixed multitude for their food, because he says, "Shebizman Bayis Sheni," at the time of the second temple, the Talmidi Chachamim were not sustained by the people of the field. The Ochlim Pasul, the Asa, who ate things which are prohibited. That's what Shalom. Why? They had fields and vineyards. The Talmid Chachamim had their own fields and vineyards. And nevertheless, and so you could say the Zohar says that's going to be in the future. Well, that future event we already had, and so the notion that in the future we're only going to eat from the tree of life, we already had that experience, so to speak. And so you can't say, and nevertheless, not only we persisted in learning the laws of Tumah and Tahara, this was the time when all the halachas were clarified. The whole Shakla V'Taria and bringing forth to the oral tradition happened in this time. They were very involved in the laws of Isser V'Heter and Tumah and Tahara. Kol Zugas, all the pairs of, Shammai and Hillel, that's their whole business, right? Shammai said this, Hillel said that, all to Mavara the halacha. Which was the time of the second temple, and they gave forth and raised whole generations of students, thousands and tens of thousands. And still, the learning of Kabbalah was done only in secret. So we see the presence of the Zohar and the Kabbalah. The Eitz Chaim is not nullifying our involvement at all in the laws of the tree of good and evil. The tree of good and evil, which is Heter and Isser, prevails. Okay, so he says, in truth, if you look carefully at the language of the Zohar, I'm looking to see any questions here so far. So do raise your hand, please, and if you've got questions on what I'm saying. Okay, the Alter Rebbe now go back to the Alter. When you look carefully, if you medactic b'lashon raimahem, you get very precise in the language of what the Zohar said, the Le'il above. And it said that the tree of good and evil, the ihu iser v'heter, which is forbiddenness and permittedness. It didn't say the laws of permittedness, of forbiddenness and permittedness, right? It said that permissiveness and permittedness, that whole quandary of mixture. I mean, let's go back to basic for a second. The basic, the eating from the tree of knowledge. Good and evil existed before that, but it was in a manner of singularity. There was no opposition. Why I say that? Because God is the one who the Kabbalists, well, we're in a little piece of Kabbalah here, but Kabbalists say about God, he's the one who is Soivel HaFochim. He is one who resolves opposites. At his point of unity, before diversity manifests itself, good and evil are not contradictory to each other. An example that we have of that, if evil is darkness, right, and good is light, we have a process by which God begins the creation called the tzimtzum. He brings darkness to bear on the light for a good reason, so that godliness can be contained and absorbed and experienced by us limited creatures. If he didn't bring some darkness to the light, then the light would overpower us, like the sun would overpower us if the sun, instead of being 93 million miles away and being diluted and obscured by the darkness and the impediments coming through the atmosphere, were to be down here on planet Earth, we would burn up. So the force of light and darkness operated together and weren't cut into good and evil. Good and evil, the tree of good and evil messed things up. The eating, and we couldn't tell one from the other, and we can't tell one from the other. We live in a world where darkness is called light. Well, how about today? Woke is really asleep, right? And we, or put it asleep, being blind to the truth, being dead to the truth, and being forcefully manifesting the opposite of truth is called woke. So this total confusion, right? That's what happened in the tree of Eitz Hadas, the total confusion. So it doesn't say, I'm just clarifying, it doesn't say that darkness and light won't be will be eliminated. It says, it doesn't say that the laws of Isser and Heter will be totally eliminated, or the halachas of Isser, or the laws of Isser and Heter, the teachings of Isser and Heter and the laws of Isser and Heter. It means to say that in the future, the guf davar ha'asr, the body of something, the physical body of something which is taken, for example, is prohibited, the davar hamutter, that comes from the tree Elona de Tevera. If something is permissible or something is prohibited, comes from the tree of good and evil. And when good and evil are clear, where it's clear what's good and what's evil, that's something that's going to be maintained forever. Now, that's going to pose a question also, because we know that, yes, on the one hand, the obscuring, as I said earlier, the darkness is for our benefit. But when it becomes a klippa, a shell that's so thick, then it becomes something where we can't see the light at all. And that's not the state of Geula. The state of Geula is the state where we do see the light of all, right? So what happens to these klippas? Over the time, from the time of Avram Avinu, which begins in next week's Parshas Lech Lecha, began the 2,000 years of Avodas HaBirurim, the work of separating. And then from then on comes the heels of Mashiach, of which we are at the end. So Birurim, the function of clarifying, rectifying, finishes. But nevertheless, we still need to know the laws. There still will be the reality of something is prohibited and something is not prohibited. The laws of the Torah won't go away. How that works in relation to the klippas being completely rectified, we'll go on to and discuss that later. But where we're holding right now is that don't misunderstand the Zohar, that it says when the tree of life prevails, don't think that means to say that the Torahs, the laws of Isser and Heter will go away. It means to say the guf davar ha'asr, that the body of the thing which is prohibited, the davar hamutter, and the thing which is permissible, you need to know, first of all, that permissibility, or the opposite, comes from the Ilani, the Toivara, from the clear separation of that's called Bira Hilchasa, to clarify the halachas so that the good and the evil don't be intermixed with each other, so that we don't know the difference between light and darkness, but they're separated out. Shehu klippus naiga, and that evil is clearly identified as a klippa, and some klippas are impure and cannot be rectified, and these are the gimel klippas and tameas, and some can be rectified. These are the klippas naiga, the klippas that where the light can shine through, all the things which are mutter, permissible to us. As is written in Eitz Chaim from the Arizal. What does it mean if something is usher? If something is usher, it means that the klippa, that thing which is surrounding it, the shell which surrounds it, which makes it something individual, that's the good thing. It individuates it so we can deal with it. But at the same time, it's concealing and darkening the kedusha, the holiness which is within it. So Isser means that the klippa is dominating over the thing. And if it's one of the in the realm of the gimel klippas hatameya, it can't be elevated. Yadavar hamutter, like a permissible thing. Mutter means the word literally means to untie. It can be untied from its connection to the klippa. That's something which is mutter. The hainu she'enu kasher v'aser. Aser means tied down. So there's two kinds of klippas. The klippas which are there and permanently tied down the thing, and the only rectification for the thing is that the thing should die, and if it's a physical thing, or you should have nothing to do with it. In other words, don't bring you can't bring kedusha into it. And then there's the ones these are the loisaseh, all the 365 negative commandments, because you can't do anything with that except stay away from it, right? That's why he did it that way, and what the importance of that is another topic. And I'm smiling because there's all reams and reams of discussion about all of this. But for the moment, there are these two klippas. Gimel klippas at the Emmaus, 365 negatives, don't touch. And then the positives, which not only can you touch, but you must touch. You're commanded to get involved in them, because you're commanded to take away that klippa, which that klippa is eina kasher v'aser. It's not tied down. The holiness which is in it, the chayas which is in it, and which is in the others as well, right? In the gimel klippas tameas, there is also, remember, continuing our subject from before, the godly life force is invested in everything, including the gimel klippas tameas. It couldn't have any existence without the life force of godliness being in it. But the other ones, the ones which are heter, are not tied down with klippa. But yochel ha'alos, and they can be elevated al yedei ha'adam ha'oichle b'kavanas laHashem, through a person who is taking something, piece of fruit, and you eat it with a kavana. V'gam b'stam kol adam, and even an ordinary person, ha'oived Hashem, who serves Hashem, shebekoyach achila, in other words, he's not doing this, or she's not doing this. I'm not eating the fruit with the kavana that I'm releasing the godly spark. But the fact is that you are really just by eating it. The eating it gives you strength. Through the eating, who that thing, that's what's giving you the strength to learn and pray. Hashem. When Nimsa comes out, it comes out that you've brought the words of Torah, which are telling you this is permissible and this is not permissible, and the davening that you do, all of those learning that you do are being empowered from the koyach, from the power that's been rectified, separated from the fruit that you're eating. When you're dealing with gibel klippas, when you're dealing with the klippas noiga, v'zer b'choel, and this is what happens during the week. The 6 days in Mavara, 6 days you're involved in avodas habirurim. Aval b'Shabbos, sheyesh aleha l'klippas noiga. Aval b'Shabbos, sheyesh aliyah, not aloha. There's an elevation the klippus nega, but atzma in itself. Shabbos elevates everything. Im hachatzonius shebechol ha'olam, it elevates everything with the externality of all worlds as well. All worlds are elevated on Shabbos. Mitzvah le'echol kol hatanugim b'Shabbos. That's why it's a mitzvah to eat a lot and to eat all the things, particularly those things which you have delight in. During the week, it's more about the avoida, right? As I'm eating this in order to sustain myself. Shabbos is called oinek. And on Shabbos, since everything gets elevated, you're meant to have delight from the things you're eating and drinking. And in fact, the halacha is you should increase in eating meat and yayin, those things which give you delight. Even if you did that in a weekday, you would be called a glutton. When it comes to a thing which is iser, tied down, which you're not able to elevate Leiba Shabbos for Leiba Choil, neither on Shabbos nor during the week. So even when you eat, even when you pray, you pray and learn with this power that you got from eating, God forbid, something forbidden. Unless, of course, you're eating it to save your life, in which case eating something which is prohibited is permitted to save a life, and therefore shatiro, it's permitted. That's an example, the only example of how you can consume something which is forbidden to be consumed and be doing a mitzvah because you're saving a life, you're doing it. And that's a heter, so it became a completely heter gomer. But learning Torah, af hilchas iser heter. So there are objects which are iser, and there are objects which are mutter. Now the learning and in the Torah of these halachas of iser heter, tum v'tarim, shehem hamishnayis uberaisis, which are the mishnayis and the beraisis, Shiva Gemara, Poiskim, and the Poiskim, the ones who paskin halacha in the Shulchan Aruch, who explicate the words of the Torah so that we have a pasak halacha, lamaisa, what to do. Hein hem gufi Torah. They are part and parcel of the Torah, meaning those laws are not something which are subject to time. Just as the Torah is eternal, and the Torah comes from the space of God's singularity, so all the laws of Tuma and Tara, which are part of the Torah, which is eternal, and part of God's singularity, are forever part of the Torah. The laws of Tuma and Tara don't disappear. Or Shehi Sfiris Malchus Adatzilis, because what is the Torah, the oral Torah? The oral Torah, of course, is the Mishnah and the Gemara, and ultimately leading to the Psak Halacha. Shehu Torah Shabal Peh, that's called the oral Torah. And one of the reasons it's called oral Torah, the plain simple reason is because it's explicated orally by oral argument back and forth amongst the Chachamim, the Gaonim, and later on down to even to this very day. But the more deep reason why it's called the oral Torah is because it comes from God's mouth. What's God's mouth? God's mouth is his sphere of Malchus. Shehu Spheres of Malchus. So the Torah, with its laws of Itzer v'Heter, are part of the eternality of the Torah, which is spoken continually from God's mouth, analogously to the way the creation is continuously spoken from God's mouth, from the sphere of Malchus. Malchus of Atzilus, that's where it begins. And is brought in the Holy Zohar, the Mekoimes and Mispar, in places without number. And particularly in the beginning of what's called the section of the Zohar called the Tikkunim, it makes the following statement: Malchus Peh, Malchus is the mouth. Torah Shabal Peh Kurinin Law. The oral Torah is what it's called. So I think everyone understands. Sphere is from Chochmah to Malchus, I hope. If not, just it's vertical condensation of godly energy from Chochmah down to Malchus. Malchus, the last sphere. And Malchus is the mouth, Malchus is the womb, Malchus is the Mother Earth. That's where everything comes down, all the godliness comes down, gestates, develops, and gives birth to creation. That's why creation is in the metaphor of speech. And the Torah is Torah Shebal Peh, the Torah that comes through the mouth, which comes from Malchus, which begins in Malchus of Atzilus. And in Malchus, in Atzilus, Ihu Gameh Hichad, he and his causations are one. That is, those things which are being born from his speech don't feel any separation from him at all in the world of Atzilus. Their individuality is being born. Their multiplicity is being born in the world of Atzilus. It's a world. There's some concealment there, but they don't feel any separation. It's transparent in Atzilus. Because the light in Atzilus is unified, completely unified, utterly unified, is of the yichud, of the lights and the vessels. There's a complete unity. That his will and his wisdom, which is enclosed in his speech, Malchus, which is called Malchus, Malchus' speech, in Atzilus are called Echad. Everything is one. Now, to do Shabbat, that was all today. We have a small piece for Shabbos. But let me take a breath and see anybody got questions so far. I hope the lack of questions isn't coming because it's just all going past you. Because if it's going past you, you need to ask a question. Okay, so everyone's with it so far. That which somebody saying something?
No, I was just going to say, just too distracted to really.
Well, that's no good. No, not a time for distraction.
Shabbos. We've been busy cooking for the soldiers. We're running around.
This takes a lot of
ready. We have to set everything special for Shabbos. We have special settings on the computers and on the phones and what we can do and what we can't do.
Oh, that's a shame.
Halachas for Shabbos in a war are amazing.
Yeah, okay. But it's a shame.
That was yesterday about halacha, right?
No, this is all today. We're doing all today.
I know. I'm trying to relate it to your shiur. Thank you.
Not a good time for distraction. This is a pretty intense stuff. Umasha Harizal, that which the Arizal says, Shamishnayis Hein b'Malchus, the Yetzirah. It's there. He stratifies the Torah in terms of where it appears. Mishnayos, he says, it's all from Malchus, ultimately from Malchus of Atzilus. But Mishnayos, he says, comes from, it manifests in the lower world of Yetzirah. That's Mishnayos. So what does he mean by that? He means, Lavush Malchus. Malchus of Atzilus becomes enclosed in Malchus of a lower world. And that lower world is Yetzirah. That's 2 worlds down from the Yetzirah. And that's where the Mishnah comes. The containment of the words of Hashem in the Mishnah, they're dressed. The light of Atzilus is dressed in the words of Yetzirah in the Mishnah. Shemislabish boy Malchus de Atzilus, and Malchus of Atzilus is enclosed in it. Now this is all beginning to get to the point that the Torah as a whole is always and always, no matter whether it's speaking about Kabbalah and the mystical side of things, or whether it's speaking about the finest details in the halachas you're apparently learning in order to make sure you're doing everything right for Shabbos and the troops and feeding and what you can't do. All of this is the same Torah. It just comes down and gets dressed up in different ways as it comes down and down and down. It's all coming from Malchus of Atzilus. Malchus the Yetzirah nikra shivcha. And Malchus of Yetzirah, which we call the Mishnayos, that's where the dressing up in the form of Mishnah comes, is called a maidservant. Lagabe Malchus Atzilus. Malchus Atzilus is the queen, and Yetzirah is also feminine, but at a level called a maidservant. in relation to Malchus of Atzilus. Malchus de Bria Nikra Ama, and she is called a maid, which is something higher than a Shifra, because Bria is higher than Yitzira. But then you should know from Ashikasav Arizal, from what the Arizal said, the Mikra, which is Chumash, the Hainish Torah B'Shkasav, comes down even lower. It comes down on the principle, the higher the source, the lower it comes. So the Torah, the written Torah, comes down directly initially into physical luchos, into physical stones, and then gets written down in physical ink, down here below. All this is explained in the Zohar, in the Kisvei Arizal, Makamis, and Mispar, in many different places. You can't count them. The Tiferes, the Torah, Ksav, is connected with the Midah of Tiferes, Midah of God's splendor. That's the written Torah, which is called Zoh the Atzilus. It's the Midos of Atzilus. Again, this is Kabbalah talk, but all on the notion that the Torah, all of the Torah, the mystical parts of the Torah and the details of halacha all come from Atzilus, which is the singular point of manifestation of worlds, and then it drips down and gets broadened out and dressed up in different ways, but it's all coming down from the flow which is called Zoh of Atzilus. But this flow comes down and down and down and condenses until it gets dressed in the world of Asiya, the lower world. And this is expressed explicitly in one of the Kabbalistic writings called Sefer HaKavanas, Shemikra u'Mishnah v'Talmud, that all of these things, the written Torah, the Mishnah, and the Talmud, and the Kabbalah, all of them, kulam be'atzilus. Our major point here is even the details of what's permissible and not, the whole realm of permissibleness and not permissibleness, and tahara and the opposite, all those details are not something that's a subject, a product of klippa. They're all products of God Himself as He emanates from the world of Atzilus. It's just that they come down and get manifest in different levels until you get scripture, which comes down into the world of Asiya, and the Mishnah, which goes only down to Yetzirah, and Talmud Babriya. And that's the beginning of a longer explanation, which we'll continue with on Sunday, about the structure of the Torah and its eternal relationship to reality, and not that structure dissipates or changes as we move from Galus to Geula. So what do we do with that? So what? Well, Rivka, in order, maybe you didn't intend to, maybe you did intend to, gave us something that all these details of halacha that she's, busy with, and that everybody will be busy with, but maybe not with the same energy that she has for the troops. All of this, and particularly halacha, is where you find God Himself.
Yes, I was. It was not. It was hashgacha pratis. My interruption. I apologize though if it was distracting to you. But I see it fits even better than I thought, because the beauty of halacha is so apparent here now, that it's so real and it's so true to life, and it's like a protective shield. It's just like a beautiful thing, and how everybody is really with it.
Really?
What's an example? What's an example of a halacha that's beautiful? What's an example?
I was going to ask the same
thing.
An
example of halacha? Okay. The fact that people have to carry their guns to daven. It's the Rav said, the chief rabbi, both chief rabbis, Sephardi and Ashkenazi, and the local rabbis and everyone, they say, you have a gun, you must carry it. And it's not about an Arab or not Arab, it's about Pikuach Nefesh. It's about how Taibahem, that the whole point is do what you need to do to be there. I had a share with Rabbi Yaakov Goldstein about, when can you put your life in danger to save another person? And going through the Gemaras on that. It's like unbelievable. Basically, whatever you do is fine. Under those circumstances, whatever you do there's somewhere to stand. And that's a nice thing too.
Were you here? Wait, hold on. Were you here when we read that line from today's Tanya?
Which line? Say it again.
The line that says that when you take you are the davar isser. Yes. When it comes to a davar isser, something which is forbidden, which is not able to be elevated on Shabbos, neither in weekday, and you pray with it, if you eating that thing to lepekuach nefesh, or saving a life, or doing anything to save a life, shahatiru rizal, it's all permitted.
Yep, there you are.
That's his line.
Okay, thank you for reiterating that one. Yeah, we're supposed to have our phones by us at all times. There's such special settings. If you have to go out, you can take a phone in your pocket and you have it on vibrate. I mean, these are things you wouldn't think of doing, right? But this is what the Rav tells us to do.
That's amazing. So you're learning, you're having shirim in halacha in the face of pikuach nefesh.
Yeah, no, but they send out Erev Shabbos from the chief rabbis. They're together. The Ashkenazi and Sephardi agree on everything, and then the local Rav tailors it a little bit to our particular situation. Don't go to shul if you can't run fast enough to your shelter. You should daven at home.
Interesting. Very nice. Very amazing. Thank you. That's very enlightening.
Thank you.
Yeah. Beautiful. Anybody else?
We should hear good news. It'll be a good Shabbos. Everybody should be safe. Please keep in mind, Alexander Gedaliah ben Chayabatya, he's on the front line and they're ready to go. So God willing, they'll be completely successful.
Beth, you have your hand up.
Yes, hi. Now, I don't know if I'm completely wrong here, but I think you did Sunday as
Yeah, I think I did.
Yeah.
What's today?
That's all for today. We were on the end of Shabbos, and then you continued, and I think I took the next book out, because I used the Chayenu, and it sort of ends with with Berea, the last word that you said, and that was Sundays.
What's today's date? What's today's date? The 5th?
Today's the 5th.
You're right. I went into the 7th.
Okay, so because I was like going a little crazy. It's fine. I just want to make sure.
You're right. Oh, thank you. Oh, good. Then I don't have to relearn it before I teach it next time. Thank you.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Halacha. I always come back to this little piece of midrash that we say before Aleinu. There's a Kaddish and then Aleinu, and right before the Kaddish you say Halichas Olam Loi. There's a statement in the Torah that the goings Halichas Olam Loi, the goings of the world belong to Hashem. And the Midrash Tanhuma says Al Tirei Halichas, don't read the goings, ela halachas. Halachas are the goings. Everything in the entire reality that he creates goes according to a halacha. So halacha can never be abandoned, even in the time of Mashiach, when the light of Mashiach shines clearly. All right. Good Shabbos. Good Shabbos.
Shalom.